Well, here we are now, about the 7th of August. The garden has grown a lot since spring. The corn looks great. Everything's doing okay. There's been some issues, but I just want to kind of go through everything and show you where we're at here in the garden. These are the cherry tomatoes. In my other video, I showed you how I made just a single pole with some stakes here, just to hold those up. And these cherry tomatoes are looking great. They're a lot bigger than they normally get. And this year we used all just lean-to cleanings, which gives a great mulch and a lot of feed and keeps that soil nice and moist. So these are doing really well. Although I did find a couple hornworms in here. I've never had hornworms, but I'll just have to keep those picked off. I think they'll be fine. And these are the potatoes that I planted back in March. And last fall this was just filled in with the manure and lean-to cleanings, hay. And that was just put over sod, and I knew there was going to be a lot of issues with bugs and rodents, and the mice did get in here a lot. I'm not sure how much damage they did. Just kind of check here. They look pretty good though. Mice didn't get all of them. Looks like we'll still get a good crop here. These are red Norland potatoes. Oh yeah, they look pretty good. Look real good. And we'll get those picked. They're starting to die off good now. I'll give them a couple weeks to dry down and we'll dig them up and bag them. Over here I've got my Brandywine tomatoes. These are really getting tall now. This pole is probably 4.5 feet high. And you can see on the back side there's a lot of fruit. There's a little bit of blight coming in the bottom row there. In July we've had a lot of rain. We had 14 inches here in the month of July. And with all that, I'm really impressed that there's very little blight to deal with. Just a little bit here in the bottom. Most of them are fine. We got a lot of fruit set. And I did find a couple of hornworms in here, but I haven't found any more since last night. And over in here we got the herb garden. I got a little echinacea there. I believe that's tarragon. Got some oregano, a couple types of rosemary, some chives, lavender. Put up a few bird houses here. We actually had some families of tree sparrows come in, but I think they're gone now. This is the basil. One thing I noticed this year, normally the Japanese beetles will just decimate this stuff, but there's no bugs on it this year. So I think that's because we have a good mulch, a good soil here, everything stays healthy and the bugs stay off it. Over here we've got a lot of parsley coming up. Got a lot of sage here. I use a lot of that to make sausage. And I got a lot of peppermint coming in here. I just found some of this wild in the ditch, so I put in a little plant like that, which is probably going to take over my garden eventually, but we'll try to keep it under control. And over here on this side I planted some cucumbers. I wanted them to climb up the fence, but one of the disadvantages with putting hay and manure down, it keeps the ground cold. And your heat-loving plants don't come up very well. And these, I had to replant these a couple times because they just rotted in the ground, but I finally got them to come up. And we're getting some cucumbers. And over here, see with the sweet peppers, these were planted twice. The ground was just too cold for these. Normally I use black plastic, but I wanted to get away from it this year because it's a lot of money and it's a lot of time to put it in. But I think next year we're going to go back to plastic, at least some of this. And what that does also, it makes a good habitat for the snakes. Like in here, if that had plastic on, the snakes would have been all over under that, and the mice wouldn't have had a field day with my potatoes. And the corn really came up good. I had to plant that a couple times too. We had a lot of cold weather, a lot of moisture in there, so I did have some trouble getting things to come up. But I think next year we will put plastic down for stuff like corn and peppers, and maybe even the tomatoes. Maybe we'll get plastic on half of it. And here are the onions. They did pretty well this year. These were all transplants. Beans came up nice. The cauliflower, broccoli, that all did really well. Got some nice cabbage in here. I'll probably make a pail of sauerkraut out of that. The jalapenos did good. They're a lot more hardy than a sweet pepper. They came up fine. And over there, we pulled the garlic already, and I've replanted some salad greens. And the peas are about done. They did really well too. And this was the spring lettuce. I like to just let this stuff go to seed. Gets kind of a nice flower on it. It's too bitter to eat, but it is kind of nice to look at. But we got a new batch coming in there. Now I'd like to take you over to the garden pond and show you that new project I've got started. And then we put in a wildlife pond. I'd like to take you over there too. This is the garden pond that we put in the spring. I made a video about that. We do have some flowers around it now, some rocks. And all these rocks here are part of a new project I started. We're actually going to fill this in with our hay manure mixture, mulch that in heavy this fall. And we're going to get a line of flowers, shrubs, whatever, we haven't decided yet. And I put apple trees in here. These are just the wild seedlings that I dug up out of the pasture. We got one in every post. So we'll take some time this winter to kind of design this out and figure out what we want here. And the pond is doing quite well. One thing you notice here, I don't do anything to keep that clear. It just keeps itself clear. And with all the rainstorms we had in July, some frogs came in. See a couple frogs in here. Down there in that lily pad. That's a lily pad we got up on Tug Hill. And it did take, it's growing. It had a few flowers on, it's got another flower bud there. Little frog. And those frogs just migrate in from other ponds. And I think with the plant in there, it's keeping the water clear. We haven't had any algae issues with it. And this fence stretches out up through there, up to that gate. So let's go over and look at the wildlife pond. And this is just a little section of garden we put in on the back side of the wildlife garden. I had a few extra seeds, so I put in some cucumbers in there. And we've got some plants in here now. The rhubarb looks great. I just put up a section of fence with some extra tomato plants. They look really good. A lot of wildlife up here. A lot of big dragonflies are coming in now. And we should get some nice cucumbers here shortly. And let's just walk down this path here and I'll show you where my wildlife pond is. So this is the pond I just put in. This was dug out and put in the same way as the other one. This one just got done last weekend. We got a few flowers around it. And I want to get some aquatic plants in here. I'll probably get another lily pad in here. The doves really love this. If you come around right now, there's a little baby dove right there that can't quite fly yet. That likes to hang around the pond, likes to get a drink, and hopefully it's going to be all right. But there's several doves that'll come in here. And I backfilled this with just some crushed stone. I got it pretty thick in here. Back in there I want to put in a platform and some chairs. So this is where we're at for all the garden work. We got a lot to do here yet. This is just getting started. A lot to do over there. And as the harvest comes in, we'll take care of that too. But right now everything's going well, and we're looking forward to the rest of the summer. I just like to say a couple things about pruning tomatoes. I don't actually prune anything. A lot of people will take all these suckers out, which if you look in here, this would be a sucker. They'd start right up this main stem and take them out and just have a single stem with a few leaves on it and more fruit. And I don't do that because I found out that it's, number one, a lot of work, and it gives you inferior fruit. These leaves are what's going to catch the sunlight, and these are going to create sugar, and that sugar goes into your fruit. So the more leaves you have, the more quality fruit you can have. And this, it shelters the ground, keeps it shaded, it protects those tomatoes so they don't get scalded. So you can save yourself a lot of time and get a lot better quality by just letting them go.